Hello and welcome. In this video we want to do some limit questions. These questions are related to limit laws, but they are not simple questions and some of them are a little tricky. This is the first question. If limit of f of x minus 5 over x minus 2 when x approaches 2 is equal to 8, then find the limit of f of x when x approaches 2. Attention here. In the denominator we have x minus 2 and x approaches 2. When x approaches 2, x minus 2 approaches 0. And because this limit of this fraction is equal to 8, so it makes sense that the limit of the numerator, limit of f of x minus 5 when x approaches 2 should also approach to 0. Because the indeterminate form is 0 over 0 in the limits. And because the limit exists, so the limit of numerator should also be 0. And because the limit of the numerator is 0, so limit of f of x should be 5. Because f of x minus 5 is 0, so f of x, limit of f of x when x approaches 2 is 5. But we need a better reasoning for finding limit of f of x. I know the limit of f of x when x approaches 2 is 5. I have the answer. But I need to relate this answer to the limit laws. Let me show you how you can do that. First, I am going to start with this expression in the numerator. Limit of f of x minus 5 when x approaches 2 can be written as limit x approaches 2 of f of x minus 5 over x minus 2 times by x minus 2. Maybe it's a bit odd for you that why I wrote this way. Because I want to relate this limit to this given limit. The difference between this expression and this expression is that this one has a denominator. So I divided this by x minus 2 to make it like this, and because I divided that by x minus 2, I multiply it also by x minus 2. Now I have this expression. So this limit is equal to this limit. There's no difference between these two. Now attention, limit of this part of this expression exists when x approaches 2, based on this. And of course, limit of x minus 2 when x approaches 2 exists. It is 2 minus 2 and it is actually 0. So this limit exists and this limit exists. And based on the limit laws, here is the part that I am using limit laws. Attention. To write this, I am using the limit laws. Based on the limit laws. Because this limit exists and this limit exists, I can separate this and write it as limit x approaches 2 of f of x minus 5 over x minus 2 times by limit of x minus 2 when x approaches 2. Based on this, which we have here, the first limit is 8. The second limit, this limit is 0 because 2 minus 2 is 0. So this equals to 8 times 0 and it equals 0, of course. So limit of f of x minus 5 when x approaches 2 is 0. Now that I have this result, I am going to find limit of f of x when x approaches 2. So far I have this result, limit of f of x minus 5 when x approaches 2 is 0. But I want to find limit of f of x when x approaches 2. I have to get rid of this negative 5. Maybe simply here you are thinking, okay, let's move the negative 5 to the other side and then limit of f of x is 5. You cannot do that. We don't have such a rule for limits. This is not an equation. Here we have this limit notation. You cannot do it that way. So now I am going to try to write this limit in terms of this limit. Let me show you how. This limit is actually limit x approaches 2 of f of x minus 5 actually, plus 5. Of course, f of x minus 5 plus 5 is f of x. Nothing is changed so far. But attention, I know that this limit exists. Based on this result, that this limit is 0. And of course, limit of a constant exists and is that constant. So, based on the limit laws again, can you see how many times we have to use limit laws to find the answer of this question? It seems easy question, but it's not actually so easy question. So I separated these two expressions and I wrote it as two separate limits. What was this limit? If you remember, 0. Limit of any constant is the constant, so 0 plus 5 is 5. Finally, limit of f of x when x approaches 2 is 5. I will show you more questions like this in the next videos.